In this video, I'm going to teach you how to draw scale figures. Now, interior designers often are much more comfortable drawing walls and architectural features and furniture, and I personally struggle with drawing scale figures or people. We call them scale figures in the industry, but I just keep practicing over and over again to get better at drawing them by hand, and I'm going to teach you a couple of strategies to help with that process. Just to begin, scale figures or people are always 7.5 heads tall, whether they're 7.5 little heads or 7.5 big heads. So what you're going to see here, I'd like to focus your attention to this side of the drawing first. And what I've drawn here are 7 heads, and you can see them here stacked one on top of the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5 heads. Now, what we have to do when we think about heads, 7 heads as a scale figure in an interior space, is we have to figure out where these heads start and stop. And that's why it's important for the designer, as they're drawing their perspective, to always have that horizon line here. And you can see our horizon line is right here at 5 feet tall. Now, the horizon line is where the vanishing point is located, and that's because that's where a person's eyeballs are or a viewer's eyes are. So it's helpful because we can look at our stack of 7 heads, 7.5 heads, and we know that the eyes of our scale figure are going to be right here. Okay, so even though this is kind of the top of the 7th head, it's actually where the head of our scale figure is going to be. So don't confuse these heads with the heads of our scale figure. Now, we know that whether we draw a scale figure in the back of the room or at the front of the room, everybody's eyes are going to be always at that horizon line, unless there's somebody sitting down, which we'll talk about in a second. So once you have those 7.5 heads drawn, we have to figure out, of course, that they start at the horizon line and where do they end. And so I want to place a scale figure in my scene right here, kind of sitting right by walking right through that door. You can see there's a pencil line here of that scale figure real lightly, but I'll show you how I ended up there. So if we want to have our scale figure standing right here, that scale figure's eyes are going to be right here. Okay, so because I have this open space over here, this is where I'm going to show you how to draw it, and then we'll kind of transfer our information over on this page once we understand how to do it. So we know that the ground line of where that person's feet are right here. So then all we have to do is figure out how big to draw heads so that there's 7 from this line here to about this line here, because of course we have to leave room for the eyes here. So you can see I took some scribbling, but I got it eventually. And so you can see here, all I did was I started here, ended here, eyeballs of my scale figure here, and I drew 7 heads stacked one on top of the other. Now what's really neat is this is my next step, and I've drawn it next to, whereas normally I draw on top of, but I drew next to for ease of communication here. So the next thing I do is I actually draw my scale figure's head. Now, a lot of interior design students, when they begin, they draw a perfect circle for a head. We don't want to draw a perfect circle because most heads aren't perfect circles, they're ovals. So we're going to draw an oval right there. And then again, we've got that line indicating about where the eyes are going to be. Now the shoulders, you can see here, are 1.5 heads down. You can see right here. And so I've drawn a line to indicate where the shoulders are. Now the shoulder width is always 3 heads wide. And so you can see here, I've drawn a line here and here to indicate where the head is. And then I've drawn 3 heads wide for the shoulders. Okay. Right about here, 3.5 heads up, that's where the waist ends. Okay. About 3 heads up off the ground is where the hands usually end. And then the rest of the space down here is usually where legs are. So if we come over to now the next draft, and you can see my scale figures, I still struggle with them. You can see here I've added some hair, an indication of a face, a neck, and a collar, but you can see the shoulders are drawn right at that height. They're about three or so heads wide, and you can see here he's a little foreshortened, so he's a little bit narrower. You can see the wrists end right at this level, the hands end right at this level, and then we've got the pants and the shoes. Now, Less is more with scale figures, especially if you're not very good at drawing them. But make sure, a couple things to keep in mind. Make sure you've got the hands drawn and that they don't look like little paddles. The tendency for people who struggle is to just draw the hands and draw them like that. And we don't want paddles for hands. So, do a little, add some fingers, look at some pictures, study your own hands, figure out how to draw some decent looking hands. Again, just adding little indications of fingers can help. Always kind of bring some looseness to the sleeve. If you can, think about where the arms are going to be, and you can add either a crease in the clothes for where the elbow is going to bend, or you can also bring arms out and bend them. You can see here, I could kind of draw this over and show how a bent elbow might look. Always with the knees and legs, you want to bring them down, but have a little bit of kind of ruffle on the front of the pants. And then again, a little indication of kind of where the knees might bend a little bit on those pants. And then the other thing is too, with the feet, I see with a lot of beginning interior designers, they do just feet like this. Again, paddles for the feet. Feet don't really look like that. Usually what you see instead is the break of the legs of the pants, and then you see almost like the front of the shoe, like that, if the foot's facing towards us. Now, if we were going to do a side view of the foot and the shoe, we would probably have the pants break, and it's a little bit messy here, but it's because I'm scribbling. But the side view of the shoes, and then you could show the heel of the shoes just a little bit. And again, knowing that, I'm going to draw it a little bit bigger here. You've got the break of the pants, the toe of the shoe, the heel of the shoe, and then it comes down like that a little bit. Okay? Takes practice, takes a lot of practice. Now, once you've got your scale figure drawn and you're again thinking about the width of the head being an oval, width of the shoulders, kind of stopping and starting and using these heads as references, you can see here. Now I can start to figure out where they're going to go in my scene. Now, I'm going to have most people's eyes at about this height. I'm going to have one scale figure whose head is going to start here and it's going to be standing in the window. So the bottom of my scale figure is going to be down here like this. Now I'm blocking off the space where the scale figure is going to go, but I'm not going to leave them like that, because if I leave them like that, it will be the least developed object in this room, and it'll indicate to the viewer that I don't know how to do it. So I'm going to block them out for now in the same way that I've already blocked out and extruded the rest of the furniture. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another one back here that's going to be standing next to this buffet back here. Same thing. The scale figure's feet will end here, just in front of the buffet. Okay. Then I'm going to have a person kind of right in the foreground. Okay. And they're going to be nice and big. And they're at the very front, so their feet are going to end right here. And it's important that I know where I'm going to put my scale figures, because look at how much I won't have to draw of all that muddy table and the table that's going to get real messed up and kind of messy back there as all of these chairs and tables and things overlap. I'm going to put a scale figure right in front to bring attention to the human factor within this scene, but also to kind of make my work a little bit easier. The last thing I'm going to do over here is I'm going to draw a scale figure sitting down on these dining room chairs. And hopefully this scale figure's body will kind of cover the difficulty of bringing in the extra thickness of the chair back there. Maybe I'll only just see a little bit of it. So people sitting down, their eye level is at 3 feet tall, or 3.5 feet tall. So I'm going to use the true height wall. I'm going to come up 1, 2, 3, 3.5. And anyone sitting, their eyes are going to be right there. So I've got a head right there and a body right there. Okay? So that's how you can kind of get a rough idea of how to draw scale figures. Like I say, it takes a lot of practice to feel comfortable, but just remember, less is more. Notice that everybody standing up has their eyes at the same height on the horizon line. And then it's their feet which determines where in the scene they are standing. And then from there, you adjust. Divide this. So my 7.5 heads here are going to be bigger than my 7.5 heads back here. Okay? And the 7.5 heads back here are going to be even smaller than the heads here. So it's all relative, but just remember, it's 7.5 heads, eyes at the horizon line.